So today you will learn how to achieve a cinematic film look for your FPV drone, and the video you saw right now was filmed with this 7-inch long-range drone. I will demonstrate you step by step today, starting from the proper settings for your action camera. In my case, I'm using the GoPro Hero 12, but yeah, you can use any other action cam, it doesn't really matter. Of course, you can also use the O3 Air unit if you got one. We will color grade our footage in DaVinci Resolve using all the free plugins, and also using a plugin called Dehancer Pro that can emulate a film look in a fast and easy way for your workflow. I want to test this for you guys. It's also available for Final Cut and Adobe After Effects. I want to mention very quick that I don't get any money from Dehancer, so it's not sponsored, but they asked me if I want to review their plugin for DaVinci Resolve, getting a full license in exchange. And they also will see the video just when it's published, so I can give my honest opinion to you guys about this plugin, if it's worth it. And also they want to improve their plugin, so yeah, they want my honest opinion. If you want to support me, you can also use a 10% discount, and with the code WALLFPV. You would support my channel and would be very cool. If you're interested, just use code WALLFPV at checkout. But let's start right into the video with the proper settings for your action cam. So I already created a new preset, and of course we want to choose a video. And for your profile you got two options. If you got a log profile like on the Hero 12, then just take your log, but if not, take standard. In my case I use log, and for the aspect ratio you want to choose 8:7 if you can. If not, 4:3, or if you just want to shoot horizontal, then 9:16 or 16:9 for YouTube. Because 8:7 gives you the flexibility to use your content in 9:16 and 16:9 without losing a lot of pixels. For the resolution, as high as possible, 5.3K in my case. Also 10-bit, as you can see, 10-bit is also very important for your color range. For the frame rate, we want to choose 30 frames per second. If you want to be more cinematic, then to choose 24 frames per second, but I think for drones this is not recommended. For the lens, I choose the wide lens, and hyper smooth, turn it off if you have the flexibility to choose a post software like GyroFlow to create your stabilization with a software on your PC. If not, just you can use hyper smooth. Then this we want to skip. Next, the shutter speed, very important, double your frame rate. So if you got 30 FPS, take 1 to 60. If you shoot in slow motion like 60 FPS, then you would choose 1 to 200, no, not 1 to 120. This one right here. But in my case, 1:60. The white balance, we want not to let this on auto, so we are choosing daylight 5.5K. For the ISO min, as low as possible, and ISO max also as low as possible, because otherwise on the action cameras you get a grainy look. On the sharpness, also on low and not on high, because otherwise your picture or your video will look very digital. And yeah, for the color I choose GP lock. I will show you in a second what you have to change in your standard profile. So in standard everything stays the same, but for the color you want to choose your flat profile, because you have more flexibility in post to color grade your footage. But that's it, that's everything you want to get for your preset, and let's jump right into DaVinci Resolve and take a look to our color grading. Okay, so I hope you got some amazing footage, and I already put my clip I want to color grade that you saw in the beginning into my timeline. And the first thing I want to check is the project settings. You should go to the color management and have a look to your color space and transform. The color sign should be YRGB. Your timeline color space that we are working in should be DaVinci Wide Gamut and Intermediate. And our output color space, this is the color space our monitor works in, should be on Rec 709 and Gamma 2.4. That's almost for every monitor the color space. Okay, just copy it. I don't go into detail because this would take way too long. The next thing, we are going to our color space and can start our color grading process. So for the color grading, we want to start with a node tree. This is a node, and you can create more nodes by using the command Alt S or Option S. And I want to create 9 nodes. And on the 6th node, I want to add a parallel node. Now we can, because this looks pretty messy, we can clean up our node graph and we can start with the first node. If you use a log profile like me with the GoPro Hero 12, then just download your conversion LUT from your camera manufacturer. I did this already and I have this in my LUTs and GoPro LUTs. And this is the LUT I want to choose. This is a conversion LUT that converts your log into Rec 709. If you don't got a log profile, then you can skip the first node. And the second node, we want to do a color space transform. So search for color space transform and we want to put this on our second node, and also, I will tell you later why, on our 9th node. For the second node, the color space transform settings for the input color space, for also the LUT, as well as if you're using a flat color profile, you want to search for Rec 709 for the color space, and input gamma should be gamma 2.4. The output color space we want to work in is DaVinci Wide Gamut. This is the reason why we changed this in our project settings, and also DaVinci Intermediate. This looks now way worse, but trust me, in a couple of seconds it will look much better. For the input color space on our 9th node, we want to choose DaVinci Wide Gamut, and for the gamma DaVinci Intermediate. And for our output color space, this is the color space now that we want to export our video later for all social media platforms, or I don't know what you want to use your video for, but you should choose Rec 709 and gamma 2.4, and as you can see now it looks like in the beginning without the color space transforms. And the reason why we did this is because in the DaVinci Wide Gamut we have a wider color space, so we can do finer adjustments to our color grading, and also regardless of what camera you use, you can start from the same starting point and shot match your colors. I want to label them really quick, so we are going from our Rec 709 into DaVinci Wide Gamut, and here we are going back from DaVinci Wide Gamut into our normal color space, the Rec 709. So for the basic color grading, we want to use these nodes right here. And the first node, I want to label this really quick. I want to do the exposure and white balance. I'm going to start with the white balance. You should set your scopes to vector scopes. Then go to your primaries, and on the offset, you want to click on this white little dot. And now you can just get your colors more into the middle of the vector scope. And this creates a more natural starting point. But if you want a more sunset vibe, then you can get this one more into the upper left corner. I will do a little bit, so we got a more of a sunset flare like this. This should be fine. And that's everything you want to do for the white balance. And for your exposure, we want to go under the HDR tools and adjust our global exposure. So how do you know how much exposure you need? And for this we're going to change to our scopes, to the waveform. And here you can see the colors that our frame right here got. So if I'm going over the colors, you can see there are these little circles showing me the colors. But on the top there you can see the highlights, and on the bottom there are the shadows. And you don't want your footage to overexposed. If there is a clipping line, then it's overexposed, or if there is a clipping on the bottom, then it's underexposed. In my case, it looks pretty nice already, so I just want to, as you can see here, if I'm putting this way too high, then all the colors get clipped. Also, if I put this way too low, then the colors get just clipped from the shadows. I want to bring this a little bit down, just a little bit, as you can see. And that's everything for the exposure and white balance on our third node. For the node number 4, we want to do our contrast. And for the contrast, we are going to use our curves. So how do you change the contrast? The first thing you want to check is on these 3 little dots that your splines are editable. There should be this check mark. And now you want to have a look on your highlights and shadows. So for the contrast, you want to bring your highlights, this is the right dot, a little bit down. And now, yeah, it's a little bit too underexposed, but we can change this by bringing this a little bit more up again. And as you can see, you don't want to clip this on the highlights, but just a little bit. This should be fine for now. And then go to your shadows. This is the left one. Bring them a little bit up, not too much because they're also already really high. And then to bring them a little bit more down, just take this one and bring it a little bit down like this. And at the end you want to have a S curve created with your custom curves. And now, as you can see, if I disable the contrast, it looks way better with our S curve. So for node number 5, we want to change or adjust our saturation. To do that, you want to go into the primaries, and then you see our saturation right here. And this already looks pretty good, but I want to bring the saturation a little bit more into the frame. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Not too much. Okay, so now we did our basic adjustments to our color correction. And at this point, if your picture or video doesn't look good, then adjust these nodes right here, because they are key for our basic color grading. And we are now branching off into different nodes. So you are always starting from your node number 5 and just changing all the things from this node right here. So this node here is not affected by node number 7. So for node number 6, we want to change our temperature if needed. And that's really much your opinion. If you want to create a more cold winter look, then you go into your primaries and change your temperature to a colder look. But in my case, for the sunset, I just want a more warmer look. But I think it's already pretty warm, so I will also bring the temperature a little bit down. And that's basically it for the temperature node. For node number 7, we want to label the sun. And if I'm going through the video, if you got a video that has a bright sun, you can just bring the highlights or the sun exposure down by going to HDR wheels and then changing the exposure of the light a little bit. And as you can see, we are getting some more informations of our color spec into the frame. If you have a look, it looks a little bit better. Got more details right here, and the sun is not too bright. And that's everything you want to do for your basic color grading. But now comes the secret sauce. And for that, we want to go to our nodes number 10 and 11. And we want to do a color space transform again on node number 10, and going from Rec 709 and Gamma 2.4 into our output color space, again Rec 709, and now into a log profile again into Cineon Film Log. Now this looks already washed out again, but for our secret sauce we are using the third-party plugin that I mentioned in the beginning called Dehancer Pro. And I want to disable all of this stuff for the beginning, so we are starting from the top and go our way all through to the bottom. So what I like about this tool is, if your camera is supported from Dehancer, you don't have to do this step and choose the output gamma Cineon Film Log. So for example, I will choose a camera. For most drone users, maybe the DJI Mavic 3 for example, and then you can already choose your D-Log. And if you do it like that, then you can just disable your LUT. You don't need to use a LUT then. But that's really nice. And what I would like to see in the future, because there's no GoPro camera into input I can choose, that would be pretty nice if they add the GoPro GP Log. And also what I would like to see is the DJI Mini 4 Pro, the new one, is also not supported, as well as the Avatar 2, the new one from DJI. And also if you're a drone pilot and using the O3 Air unit, I would like to see the O3 Air unit with the Cine-like format in these cameras right here. But they have a lot of cameras, and in my case not the GoPro, so I will use not a camera profile and the Cineon film lock. And I don't want to change any of these settings right here. And the next thing we want to do is our film. This is kind of the main thing why this plugin is so powerful, because there are film stocks that you would load into your analog camera and then start recording. And Dehancer is emulating the old analog look to your digital videos. And as you can see, there are so many different film profiles you can choose. And in my case, my favorite is the Kodak, where is it here? Kodak Vision 500T. I also like sometimes the Fuji, where is it? Fuji Color the Fuji Color Natura 1600. Very hard to spell this one. But I will take the Vision 500T and enable it. This don't look really good right now, but for the next step we want to go into our film developer and enable it and give our picture a little bit more of a color boost. I want to add a little bit of a color boost, so something like that looks pretty good already. And the next thing for our fine tuning the highlights, we want to choose the film compression, enable it. And as you can see, our highlights get a little bit more cropped, like with the sun tool we use with the HDR tools with the light exposure. I think this is way too much, so I will drop the impact a little bit down, so we just have a little bit of film compression. Yeah, this should be for film compression. I don't use the expand tab, but this tab is also very important. And so the second powerful thing about this plugin, as you would go through your analog film process, you would get your analog film to print it on a print stock so you can watch it on a cinema or something like that. And so I want to choose a print style, and I'm choosing the Kodak 2383. That most cinemas are using, and I want also to enable it. And as you can see, it gives our picture a way more cinematic look. This is really powerful. If you got this one, make sure you have enabled it. And also what's pretty cool is you got the control over your print. So you can change your exposure, for example, and say you want a little bit more exposure in my case. And also the color density, this brings more depth into your colors, and not the saturation is a little bit different to color density, but color density gives your colors a little bit more of depth. And that's everything I want to change for my print. I want to skip the color head because here you could change your tones, if you want a little bit more yellow or magenta. Yeah, I want to skip this one. And the next thing that is normal for analog films would be the film grain, so you get a more grainy look. But for FPV drone footage, I would recommend to use film grain. I don't like it, but if you like it, then just enable it. But this one is pretty cool. Halation creates halos around bright light sources. I want to label this very quick. And here, the higher your profile number, the less it affects your video. So we'll choose something that you can see the impact. If I'm enabling it, we get a little bit more depth in the shadows. I will go to another point there you can see it better. And as you can see, we get some halos around the highlights. There you can see pretty good. And I don't want to get this too high, the number. I like something around 35 millimeters. This gives just a little bit of these halos around our highlights. And this gives us also, again, a pretty good cinematic look. The next thing we want to change is the bloom. The bloom just softens the highlights, so you don't need a pro mist filter on your camera. And my favorite one is also something not too heavy. 35 millimeter looks again pretty good. And as you can see again here, if I enable it, we got some more softer edges around the halos. You could also add a film damage. So if you play the video, then you will see some grainy look, but I don't like this for FPV footage because I want to keep this modern cinematic. And that's basically everything you want to change, because the film breath, I don't want to use this also, and also not the gate wave and overscan. But if you want to get a more cinematic look, then just use the vignette, so your corners will get a more darker look. but I think without a vignette it looks better in my case. But that's everything you can do with this plugin. I think it's a pretty cool plugin because you can create your cinematic look just in seconds, as you can see. This looks also pretty good, but with Dehancer you get this more cinematic look also for the sunset. It looks so epic with the plugin and I really like it. I will use it in the future for my workflow. Also for the notary, I can use this pretty easy at the end. I hope you liked this video. Don't forget to get the 10% discount if you want to buy Dehancer with the code WALLFPV, and see you in the next one.